In the cramped, humid heat of a makeshift dressing room, a 12-year-old boy held his breath, not from fear, but from hope. His name was Jun, and he had exactly 1 minute to change the course of his life. The story you are about to see is one of raw talent, a family's sacrifice, and a moment that would echo across the internet, inspiring millions. But to understand the power of that moment, you have to understand the journey that led to it. If stories of ordinary people achieving the extraordinary move you, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel for more incredible narratives. Jun's world was small, confined to the bustling, dusty streets of Tondo, Manila, one of the most densely populated areas in the world. His home was a single room made of corrugated metal and plywood, a space he shared with his grandmother, Aling Rosa, and his 4 younger siblings. His parents had left for the city years ago to find work, and the remittances had slowly stopped, then stopped altogether. Aling Rosa, a woman with a spine of steel wrapped in a frail, tired body, took in laundry to keep them fed. It was a meager existence, a constant fight against hunger and hopelessness. But in the evenings, their small home would transform. Aling Rosa would pull out an old, battery-powered transistor radio, its casing cracked and taped, and the tinny sounds of Manila's pop stations would fill the air. In that moment, Jun would come alive. He wouldn't just listen, he would feel the music. He would mimic the singers, his voice a clear, surprising counterpoint to the radio's static. He knew every song by heart, from the syrupy ballads to the upbeat pop anthems. His voice was his escape, his only possession of value in a world that had taught him he was worth very little. One day, a colorful poster plastered on a wall caught his eye. It was an announcement for a major televised talent competition, Asia's Rising Star. The grand prize was a life-changing sum of money and a recording contract. For most, it was a distant fantasy. For Jun, it was a single, desperate thread of possibility. He knew Aling Rosa's knees ached from scrubbing clothes, he knew his siblings went to bed hungry more nights than not. This was his chance. The problem was the audition fee. It wasn't much to most, but to them, it was a fortune. It was the cost of their rice for 2 weeks. When Jun mustered the courage to ask his grandmother, her face, etched with a lifetime of worry, softened. She didn't tell him it was impossible. She didn't laugh. She just looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. The next day, she took on 3 extra loads of laundry. She worked through the nights, her hands raw and chapped, the smell of bleach and soap clinging to her. Jun helped where he could, folding the clean, sun-dried clothes, his heart pounding with a mixture of guilt and fierce, burning hope. The day of the audition, Jun wore his best and only pair of pants, faded but clean, and a white polo shirt his grandmother had painstakingly ironed. They took 2 jeepneys and a long, sweaty walk to the convention center. The venue was a palace of glass and steel, a world away from their home. Inside, the air was cold and sharp. He was surrounded by hundreds of other kids, some with stage parents carrying garment bags, others with professional vocal coaches doing last-minute exercises. Jun felt small, invisible. He clutched a piece of paper with his song choice written in his own careful handwriting, a classic Filipino kundiman, a haunting love song that his grandmother used to hum while she worked. When his number was called, he walked onto the vast, empty stage. The judges, 3 famous celebrities, sat behind a long table, their faces a mix of boredom and cynicism. They had seen hundreds of kids today, all chasing the same dream. The host asked him a few questions. Jun's voice was a whisper as he introduced himself and his grandmother, who was watching from the back of the cavernous hall, a tiny, proud figure in a sea of strangers. The judges, barely looking up, signaled for him to begin. The backing track started. It was the wrong song. Somewhere, a terrible mistake had been made. Upbeat, electronic dance music blared from the speakers, the polar opposite of the slow, melancholic love song he had prepared. Jun stood frozen, his eyes wide with panic. He looked towards the judges, then towards the sound booth, a silent plea on his face. A ripple of impatient murmuring went through the audience. One of the judges rolled her eyes and reached for her microphone, ready to tell him to stop, that his time was up. But Jun didn't move. He didn't try to sing over the chaotic music. He closed his eyes. He thought of his grandmother's gnarled hands, of the empty rice pot, of the weight of responsibility on his small shoulders. And in that moment of utter despair, he made a choice. He took a deep, shuddering breath, and he began to sing. Not the pop song that was playing, but his song, the Kundiman. He sang a cappella, his pure, unaccompanied voice rising above the jarring electronic beat, cutting through the noise with a clarity and emotion that was breathtaking. The contrast was jarring, and then, it was mesmerizing. His voice, raw and powerful, filled the hall, telling a story of love and loss that was ancient and universal. The electronic music faded into an insignificant background hum, then was abruptly cut off by the sound technician, who finally realized his mistake. But Jun didn't stop. He kept singing, his eyes still closed, pouring every ounce of his soul into the melody. When he finished the last note, a profound silence hung in the air. Then, the silence was shattered by an eruption of applause. The audience was on its feet. The judges, who moments before had been on the verge of dismissing him, were now staring, their faces a mixture of shock and awe. The cynical judge who had been ready to cut him off had tears streaming down her face. Jun had passed the audition. He was through to the live shows. But the real drama was just beginning. His story, of the boy who sang his heart out against all odds, spread like wildfire. The clip from the audition went viral, amassing millions of views overnight. People were captivated not just by his voice, but by his courage and his dignity. The live final was a spectacle. Jun was no longer the invisible boy from Tondo. He was a contender. He performed flawlessly, his confidence growing with each round. The night of the grand finale arrived. The lights were blinding, the tension palpable. Jun was up against a seasoned performer, a girl his age from a prestigious music school who had every advantage. They announced the winner. And the name they called was not Jun's. In that instant, millions of hearts broke. Jun, however, simply bowed his head, a small, sad smile on his face. He walked to the center of the stage to congratulate the winner, his composure a testament to the strength his grandmother had instilled in him. He had lost the competition. But as he stood there, the runner-up, a producer from the network rushed onto the stage, whispering urgently into the host's ear. The host's eyes widened. He raised his hand, asking for quiet from the still cheering crowd. He then announced that an anonymous sponsor, so moved by Jun's story and his performance in the final, had matched the grand prize and offered him a recording contract on the spot. The runner-up, who had just been announced the winner, took Jun's hand and raised it in the air, a gesture of pure sportsmanship that moved the crowd to a new level of frenzy. The loss had transformed into a greater victory. Jun's life changed that night. But he never forgot the small, cramped room in Tondo, the smell of soap, and the woman whose love and sacrifice gave him his voice. He used his prize money to buy his grandmother a small house, far from the flood-prone alleys, and to send his siblings to school. His debut single, the very Kundiman he sang at his disastrous audition, became a national anthem of hope, proving that sometimes the most beautiful music is born from the most difficult silences. His performance that night wasn't just about winning a competition. It was about the triumph of the human spirit. It was a reminder that talent can bloom in the most unlikely of places, and that hope, however small, can echo across the world and inspire millions. This story touched hearts everywhere, but we want to know where it reached you today. From which part of the country are you watching this video? Let us know in the comments below.